Great, thank you. I'm David Ainsworth, Head of Communications at the United Nations Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. And here's a quick press briefing for the 23rd of March, 2022. We're here at the Geneva meetings, and just reminding everybody here that these meetings include 3 separate bodies meeting concurrently. We have the Subsidiary Body in Science, Technology and Technological Assessment, the SBSTA, the SBI, the Subsidiary Body on Implementation, and then also the Working Group on the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Let me start by giving you a sense of the activities in that working group on the Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Yesterday, the contact group discussed targets 9 to 13. So they've looked at those. The next meeting of this contact group isn't going to take place for a while until the 28th, so there'll be some time for parties to look at these and move forward. This morning, there'll be a plenary, and there'll be a joint stock-taking activity taking place near the end of the morning, so I guess sometime around noon. And what's going to happen is the co-chairs, Basile Van Havre and Francis Ogwal, will be presenting a presentation that will look at the interrelationship between the SBSTA agenda items, the SBI agenda items, and the working group. So we'll look at where we're at in terms of this process here in Geneva and what remains to be done. The other thing that will be taking place is there'll also be, in that working group, an hour will be spent looking at a non-paper on DSI that was produced as a result of those huge interventions. As you remember, at the beginning of the week, we had a 3-hour session that was taken over entirely by parties' interventions on this question of DSI, or digital sequence information. With regard to the Subsidiary Body Implementation, or SBI, the 3rd plenary took place yesterday. Different contact groups reported back. The first thing maybe mentioned is that the Gender Plan of Action had a contact group, and it didn't make very much progress, so in fact we're going to need to assemble a Friends of the Chair meeting to move forward on that. Now remember, Friends of the Chair is a more restricted meeting, so it doesn't include all the parties. It's a smaller group, and in those smaller group settings you can advance on discussions in a more concentrated way. So. The other thing, the contact group that was looking at resource mobilization and the financial mechanism also met. They advanced the agenda item, but there's a great deal of work to go. But that contact group will be meeting again tonight in the evening session. A contact group in capacity building also reported yesterday, and there'll be good progress moving forward on that. And then on the agenda item number 8, which is on cooperation with other international organizations, that was heard, and I think there's enough advance so that a CRP, or conference room paper, will be produced that the governments can talk about later on. Just one matter to look at with regard to cooperation and other organizations. The Convention on Biological Diversity does engage in intensive cooperation with other biodiversity-related conventions. So that's like the Convention on Migratory Species, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, Flora and Fauna, Ramsar, the World Heritage Convention of UNESCO, etc. So that's an important part of our collaboration work too. The other thing too is that there was discussion of agenda item 7, which was on the Nagoya Protocol and capacity building, well advanced, and it looks like they're ready to get that issue to send it to COP as an L document. For SBI also, they had a lot to do yesterday. The contact group on the review mechanism met for their 3rd session. There was a lot to be discussed, so there's a hope that perhaps some of the uncommitted sessions that are in the timetable later on, really Sunday and Monday, may be used for this, because that review mechanism has a lot of work to do. And again, as I mentioned, we've got a contact group in the financial mechanism for SBI. So for SBSTA, the sciences body, the agenda item number 6 on marine and coastal biodiversity had a contact group last night. Now this agenda item 6 deals with what are called EBSAs, areas of ecologically or biologically significant biodiversity resources in areas in the high seas. So the EBSAs process is something that started under the CBD, where parties meant to catalog a lot of these areas that are both in the high seas areas, and in some cases actually cross-national jurisdictions. Some EBSAs might exist in areas where multiple countries are claiming jurisdiction as well. So the paper is looking at explorations for new resources or EBSAs that may be cataloged, and then also the question of what will be done with the information. 38 parties made interventions, and it looks like there's a great deal of work that'll need to go before it can even go to the plenary moving forward. SBSTA plenary also looked at a conference room paper on invasive alien species. They also looked at one on sustainable use of marine and coastal biodiversity. so they'll discuss those. And then also there are two more issues that are pretty much ready to be sort of wrapped up and sent to the COP. The first one on Global Biodiversity Outlook 5, which is a report that was put out in 2020 on the state of implementation of the previous strategic plan. That's pretty much ready to go. And then there's also a document on IPBES, the Intergovernmental Science and Policy Platform for Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services. And that particular paper provides advice from the conference of the parties that will go on to IPBES to direct them on their research program in the years to come. So those are almost ready. The contact group met on item 9, health. As you remember, the health item was an item that was quite heavy. The long annex, which is an action plan on health and biodiversity, including addressing the question of pandemics, was deemed to be far too heavy for the parties to address all of it here at the meeting. So the idea is that parties are going to meet. They're going to come up with a short 2-page text that's really about the procedure going forward. How will they discuss this question of health and then take it on towards the COP as the way forward. Remember, the question of health and biodiversity is extremely important. This paper was meant to deal with the One Health approach. One Health is the way that we look at animal health, human health, and ecosystem health together in an integrated framework. And then also this paper was looking at pandemics. So that long annex will not be finalized at this, these meetings. Instead, they'll look at a way forward. The other big item that SBSTA continues to dig their way through is item 3 on the monitoring framework. So as you know, they've been working tirelessly in a number of sessions looking at indicators for the different targets and elements of the Global Biodiversity Framework. They've been using a traffic light system to help delegates understand which things will advance. Remember, they look at questions of, is the indicator reliable? Is there data at the global level? Is there data at the national level? What are the potential complications and how could it be used? So they're using a traffic light. If people feel that these are all categories that are dealt with in a given indicator, they give it a green light, which means it advances. If there's some challenges, they give it a yellow light. If the indicator doesn't meet any of these criteria, it's given a red light. It's considered to be not able to move forward. But in any event, they're going to be meeting tonight, and they're going to look at indicators for goals B and C of the framework, and D as well, and also the first paragraphs. There are a lot of indicators there, and I think one of the questions is going to be, how many indicators do they need, how many more do they need, and what's the most effective way to move forward? So that's what I've got for you today. Maybe I'll just mention as far as COVID, there was one new case today. The active cases are 5 to 14. We don't have the specifics because we actually don't know who's given us back their negative test result after the 5-day mark. We have a few side events. Let me just go to my side event list and indicate what's going on. All the side events start at 1:15 today. So first one is in Salle ABC. And that's the Sustainable Ocean Initiative. It's looking at 10 years of their work in building capacity and catalyzing partnerships. So that's from the Ministry of Environment of Japan, GOBI, and the CBD. Looking at the Sustainable Ocean Initiative is a really important attempt to bring together a variety of actors, including private sector and governments, to look at how we can move forward on sustainability and the use of ocean resources. That's at 13:15 in Salle ABC. We also have the work by Business for Nature, the Global Youth Biodiversity Network, the European project for capacity building and also for advancing the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And it's entitled The Pathways for Transformative Action on the Global Biodiversity Framework. And this is a side event that's bringing together a whole number of people. It's the head of the convention, Elizabeth Maruma-Rem is going to be there, Marco Lambertini, Eva Zabay for Business for Nature, Ingrid Coetzee. It's a big event that'll look at how they're going to move forward in this, and that's in Salle 4, Level 01. In Salle D at 1:15, we'll have a capacity building to ensure benefit sharing from the global DSI system. And so that's a variety of people who are looking at different ways that we can do benefit sharing for DSI under the system. We've also got an event on geoengineering. As you may know, the linkage between biodiversity and climate change is a key issue for both conventions. One of the issues to be carried out is potential geoengineering technologies. What are the consequences of their use for biodiversity, whether it's reflective techniques, whether it's other forms of sinks. So this event is going to be taking a look at some of these issues on the table. That's in Salle 14. And then the final side event for today is presenting the work of the panel of experts on resource mobilization. And so this will be actually looking at what we've been doing for resource mobilization, the panel of experts. This could be a very interesting paper because it'll give you a sense of how things are moving forward. That's in Salle 9 at 1:15. And that's what I've got for you for today. Is there any question from the floor here in Oh, it's all very clear? Okay, great. Okay, so thanks for those who are watching online. I do encourage you to make sure you look at the joint stock taking this afternoon. So have a great day, be safe. I'm David Ainsworth. Great, thanks.